Whenever Dan Tom does that, I picture the guy from Wayne's
Wayne's
World.
World, yes.
He does that thing.
Yes.
Today is Monday, November 6, 2017. I am Ghost. To my left, MMAjunkie Radio's fight analyst, Dan Tom. The world's greatest producer, Danny Otto, back in New York. And Gorgeous George in an undisclosed location in Enterprise, Nevada. Danny, it seems like you got the biggest pop there. I wonder how that happened.
He did.
Well, I was trying to do it. I was
George
trying to do
like
it for George
slightly
too.
below yours. Here's what I think happened. I think Danny went so high on his that he was like, fuck, how am I going to go even higher for George? So he just lowered it just a little bit just so it didn't seem too bad. But, yeah, I think that's how it went down. How's everybody's weekend? Apparently
Good.
there were fights.
Apparently.
Yeah, there definitely were some fights. That's what we live for as MMA fans. What happened on Saturday, man, that was nuts. I mean, for one, the UFC doesn't really do triple headers like that when it comes to title fights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, toss Bellator into the mix as well. I know the PFL, formerly WSOF, has done it, but at that level, for three champions to lose their belts, it'll probably be a few years before that happens again. So that was something special. I mean, not for the ones that lost it, but for the ones that won it. And, of course, every time that happens, I always think about the contenders that are chasing and what they must be feeling like Jessica Andrade and Carolina. Whew, we got that monster out of the way. Now all of a sudden they're back in the mix. Gadelia is another one at 115 if the UFC chooses to not do a rematch, which Joanna Jade, by the way, is, definitely deserves that if they do that, and then with Garbrandt and Cruz and Dillashaw, I just think of their trilogy and how that could be good for the next 2-3 years, and then over with GSP. I mean, we don't even know if the guy's gonna stay. Whitaker was there in attendance. Is he next, or does GSP leave the throne and go back to welterweight, which then brings Woodley into the mix? Or does he retire? At that point, I guess Whitaker becomes the incumbent, and there's no longer an interim. So you see what I'm saying? Your mind just starts going in so many different directions.
One of the Sanchez brothers is here. He's coming around right now. You remember them, right, George, from Hollister?
I do, yeah.
We just started our pre-show, so you can just go around there and have a seat.
Got some headphones there for you, brother.
What else? I'm trying to think. How'd your football teams do this weekend, George? Or your sports teams in general? I know you're a Man U fan. They got to win, so you got to be happy about that. USC, they got to win. Happy.
Things started off well. Friday, Mater Dei smash Servite. So, I'm always pumping up the #1 team in the nation in high school football.
Okay.
We get to Friday night. The Lakers won. They beat the New Jersey Nets, and that was a fun game because remember there was a big trade that involved us getting Kyle Kuzma and Brooke Lopez in exchange for sending D'Angelo Russell and Timothy Mozgov. We definitely got the better of the trade, and we definitely got the better of the deal on Friday night stats-wise, and we got the win. Saturday morning, I wake up. Great night of fights. No Man U that morning, but USC later that night won and covered. Nice. Then we get to Sunday, and all of a sudden things didn't go as planned.
3 minutes.
I've come to expect it with the Niners now. They lost. Okay, let me have it. And then the Lakers lost later on that night, and of course Man U lost in the morning.
Yeah.
So, sorry, the Lakers won last night.
I think I said Man U won. Yeah, they lost. You got a big bowl game coming up this weekend, George. The Toilet Bowl, right? The 49ers versus the New York Giants.
Yeah, but have the Giants won or not yet?
I think the Giants have won one, right?
I think so.
I think only the Browns haven't won along with us. Where's that game at? Anybody know?
I think it's in San Francisco. Let me double check though.
Oh wow,
That's going to be hard to watch.
You can come on.
All my fantasy teams lost this weekend, which was great. I don't play that much, and I'm not super competitive, but I'm in a league with a bunch of friends by like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So every time I lose, it's just like I wish I was just losing money to strangers. because it's so much worse losing to your friends, even if it doesn't really mean anything. It's just now for the rest of the week I'm going to hear shit.
You guys are at home, George, and the Giants are 1-7.
You know, the first 5 games of the year, we actually balled. We could have been, believe it or not, like 4-1. Only one game did we get thumped, and I think it was the first one against Carolina, 20-3. The other ones, the next 4, we lost by a combined 11 points. So not even a field goal. I think we lost one game by 2 and 3 by 3. All those games were close. They were winnable.
Up in a minute.
But at least it was fun to sit down and watch. Oh, we're getting better. Oh, we're this close. But lately, we're getting fucked up. And then I'm hearing now that Garoppolo guy we traded for, unless we franchise him, and I don't even know if we can, we may not even get him, which means we lost a number 2. So I don't know if that's just negotiation tactics or what, but that would be disheartening. We're just playing worse, and now it's really, really difficult to watch. Not even the covers there.
George, next week is going to be your turn to make some pro picks, NFL picks here at the Sportsbook. It's a long story. I'll explain later, but you get to make some picks.
Listen, we have 20 seconds, so those of you that are listening, this is the pre-show. We're just farting around right now, but make no mistake, in about 2 minutes, once we get through our intros, we will be talking about UFC 217, which took place in New York this past Saturday. Bellator 186 the night before, so stay tuned, buckle up. We're coming right at you. Bitches.
Stand by.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMAjunkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMAjunkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook and an undisclosed location in Enterprise, Nevada, it's the MMAjunkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, Ari's co-host, Dan Tom, the latest addition to the game. He's the fight analyst for the show. And, of course, Danny Otto back east, making things run seamlessly. He's our producer. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Fired up. Can't wait to start talking about this card.
I'm with you, man. Where do you want to start? Because this was one of the best fight cards of all time, arguably for some. Some are saying it's the greatest ever. I'm saying hit the brakes. It's probably top 5, top 10 when we sort through it all. It was an awesome card. There's just no way around it. And if you want to start at the top, I'm down. If you want to start at the fight that was getting the most hype leading in the fight week, which was Cody and TJ, I'm down. If you want to talk about one of the biggest upsets ever with Rose unseating Joanna Champion, I'm down. Where do you want to start, baby?
Well, I kind of want to start with what you said. Is it the greatest card of all time? There's 3 of us here. What do you guys think?
Well, I think what you do is, much like when someone says, is it Fedor, is it Kane, is it Fabricio, is it whoever, Stipe? Mm-hmm. We all have our thoughts, what we carry in our memory banks, but it's a lot easier to just open up the resume and go, okay, who's got the most finishes, who beat who, what was someone like at the time, blah, blah, blah. And so that's what you'd have to do is kind of think about the best cards you've ever heard about, unpack them, take a look. So, yeah, it's just easier for me to say it's top 5. Is it probably the best? I don't know, because I don't know what everyone defines as what's best. Is it just the wow factor itself, or the amount of ranked fighters, or is it because most titles changed hands? A lot of people are going to have different criteria, so I feel like it's going to be subjective. I'm just good with saying it was probably top 5, one of the greatest nights in mixed martial arts from the entertainment and sporting value. Entertainment because it had wow factor, sporting because, hey man, new champions were crowned. Go talk, in terms of GSP and where he stands, man, amongst, the history of our sport. I mean, there was a lot of that. So for me, it's top 5, maybe even top 3, just without even having to line up the cards themselves.
I'm going to pretty much exactly the same thing you just said. I think it's top 5, maybe even top 3. But the one thing that I felt was missing in the card, and this is me having to nitpick at this point, because it was a phenomenal card, but the one thing that I felt was missing was maybe a little bit that kind of back and forth, just all-out brawl, and the fight that I like to choose, because my favorite fight card of all time wasn't in the UFC. It was in Pride. It was Pride 33, and the fight that stood out that night was Gomi and Diaz, right? Those two were just going at each other. The Garbrandt-Dillashaw fight was pretty close, but nowhere on that level, and I felt like maybe we were missing that one type of fight, but that's just me completely nitpicking. It was a great card all around. The only other thing that kind of just felt weird, and I mean, it's hard to say this, but usually at the end of a fight, whenever you watch your favorite show, as soon as it's done, you can't wait to see the preview for the next week, right? For this one, It was so hard to have that feeling of what's next because there's so many different options, and a lot of those options don't really make too much sense, right? What we're used to. We don't know where GSP is going to end up. We don't know if TJ Dillashaw is going to go down a weight class, if Mighty Mouse is going to go up a weight class, if they're just going to stay within the division. There's just so many question marks. So I wanted to have that feeling of, all right, now we can see this fight, but we didn't really have that. Dan, you want to give your thoughts?
I think we do need to slow down on the greatest of all time talk. I do think, it was probably the greatest card so far this year, which granted hasn't been the strongest year, depending on who you ask that is. But as us fans, I think it's safe to say it hasn't, the bar hasn't been set too high compared to, 2016. But yeah, I mean, it was great. It was underdogs cash in that even if you were on the other side, how could you not feel good? For some of the stories, especially Rose's, certainly helped make the night. And then you still had 2 title fights after. We had a fight where we could see multiple times run over again, and Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw rivalry, and I have a bit mixed feelings with the end, which I'm sure we'll unpack here in this show. But as amazing as it was to see another outlier like George St. Pierre, just like Dominic Cruz, except more impressive, more on the line. He comes back, and out of retirement, out of a long layoff, if you will, and it was super impressive. And I don't want to take anything away from that, but with this and the last New York card, they were both great cards, but they ended on a funny note for me. Now, I'm more of a meritocracy guy. I like guys who earn it. I like guys who step up to any challenge, who don't pick and choose. But as much as I like McGregor and as much as I like GSP, and as fun as they are to watch, and as much as the sport needs them, it felt kind of a weird note to end both those Madison Square Garden cards, where it really felt like a very kind of, not, I don't want to say forced, or very coutoured, tailored, a very tailored path, if you will, to make a big event. It wasn't like and it's tough because you have now George St. Pierre and Conor McGregor amongst names like for multi-division titles, but I don't know if it's the same. It doesn't feel the same. It feels like very forced with the whole negotiation. Don't get me wrong. If anybody deserves to skip a line, it's George St. Pierre, hands down. That's where kind of my argument starts to stop. But if I'm being honest, it kind of rubs me a weird way as a fan. I'm glad for George St. Pierre, but part of me, it's not even the pick. I almost kind of wanted Bisping to win because it would, in my opinion, it would have been made more sense. It would have at least put us on a clearer path, a more concise path to have clarity in these divisions. Where now, with the McGregor math included, we have up to 3 divisions without clarity now. What's going to happen depending on what George wants to do? That's just my 2 cents.
Remind me what the 3 divisions are. I know one's
lightweight McGregor, and then welterweight Woodley. Obviously, that's his main division, St. Pierre, and then now he's tied with a promise, to defend the middleweight title at middleweight with his middleweight title. So now we have kind of three options floating in this. And when you look at the champions,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Tony Ferguson, who had to go through, a crazy win streak, a record-setting win streak in the deepest division to get his title. Tyron Woodley, whether you like him or not, whether you like his style or not, he fought and defended 4 times as a champion, and had to go through adversities that we probably don't know about, and most of us have never had to deal with or can experience. And then you have, Robert Whittaker, who was counted out for his middleweight run until people started taking him seriously once he started fighting all the guys that all the top guys were avoiding. Souza, Romero on one leg. So it's really hard for me to not sympathize with these guys because I feel that they deserve their due. They deserve their money shot or money fights. And yeah, so it's going to be real interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. And let's start with that. Let's start with that middleweight division. So George St. Pierre submitted Michael Bisping. He's now the new middleweight champion. Immediately after the fight, they asked him, what are you going to do? Robert Whittaker, the interim champion, was in attendance. GSP didn't directly answer the question, but if I had to pick the answer apart, to me it doesn't sound like he wants to stay at middleweight. We've heard that in his contract it says he's got to defend. Even Dana White said the next fight to make is GSP versus Whittaker. But if you listen to GSP, he basically said, wow, Bisping's hit me the hardest I've ever been hit. He gave a lot of respect towards Bisping. You could just tell he felt like it's overwhelming to go up these 15 pounds. I felt it. However, the belt is around his waist. He can make that decision. And here's another thing Dana White said. This thing's trending over a million pay-per-views. Now, let's just even say, well, Dana tends to exaggerate. All right, if it was 800,000, it still sounds like it was a huge night for the UFC. When you get to that $1 million level, I do believe that you can basically change your mind and do whatever the hell you'd like, especially when you're arguably the greatest of all time and now another power broker for the UFC. So if he were to choose to go down to Woodley and Whittaker just becomes the champion, I don't think anyone has a problem with Whittaker being champion without having, actually beaten anybody. Just the interim becomes the incumbent. And I think we'd all get jacked for Woodley and GSP because it'd be the greatest welterweight of all time versus the current welterweight champion. So that's what I believe is going to happen, by the way. And on the Bisping side, it sounds like the loss just leaves a bad taste in his mouth with some shows coming up in the UK, most notably in March. They released the schedule of some fight cards that are coming up. I believe he'll want to fight on the March card in London, and I think that probably could be his swan song. So anyway, the fight itself, GSP looked great in the first round. He really wobbled him, started to go for a finish, then pulled back, and then in the second round he got a takedown, but he was getting cut up from the bottom. Credit to Bisping. At the same time, it looked like GSP was not only losing blood, the gas tank was starting to empty a little bit. I don't want to say, oh my God, gassing, nothing like that. It just felt like a guy that, was starting to slow down. And I thought, oh, this may be tailor-made for Michael Bisping. He gets stronger as the fight goes on. Now he's opened GSP up. GSP's got blood trickling in his left eye, What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, of course, GSP comes back, knocks him down, and then submits him, and that's that. But, it had a little bit of a back and forth. Did I feel like I was watching the number 1 and number 2 middleweights out there? No, I didn't, to be honest. But that's the way things worked out, and so here we are covering it. What did you think of the fight?
Man, well, the fight I thought was pretty interesting. I was a little bit more pumped up than I thought I would be once it got underway. But as soon as they both stepped in the cage and they were standing in front of each other, it just did kind of, I don't want to say Rocky versus Thunderlips, but you could just tell it was a welterweight against the middleweight. Mm-hmm. And I think George realized that right away when he took a couple of the first blows that he took. So I think George, coming out of the fight, is probably, I think he just realized, look, middleweight's just not something I want to do. So I think he's going to drop that belt. A lot of people think he's going to go down and fight Tyron Woodley, and I could see that. It kind of makes sense. And like Dan said, if anybody can jump any lines they want, it's GSP, and I think nobody would have any issues with that. But there's one scenario out there that keeps haunting me. Mm-hmm. And the one scenario is this. If he beats Tyron Woodley, I don't want to say who gives a shit, but what does he gain? He's already the greatest welterweight of all time. Mm-hmm. What does beating the current champion do other than say, hey, I never really left, I'm back, this is really my belt sort of thing. But GSP's never really been about that. The one thing that keeps standing out in my head, I look at Dana White's eyes when he talks about trending a million pay-per-views, and I think, I bet this dude would love to put Conor McGregor up against GSP at a catch weight or something, and just say, and just have GSP say something along the lines of, "Hey, I'm already the greatest welterweight. I have nothing to prove. However, there is one big mouth that I would like to shut up and just kind of make this fight, and then I go away," sort of thing. He makes tons of money because, like George said, I don't think he has that many more fights left now. I thought he looked pretty good for being at middleweight. We got to imagine at welterweight he'd be a little bit quicker than he was. He'd probably have a better gas tank. So I thought he looked pretty good coming back. But that one fight, I don't know why, guys. I don't know why I have this feeling that somehow, some way, whether it's later in the year or what, they may try and make that fight. And that's what scares me.
Yeah, I wonder if that's back pocket territory in the sense of, which I'm hoping in the sense of like a Diaz-McGregor 3 in the sense of that's one you can keep in your back pocket. It's not really time sensitive. It's more of an evergreen matchmaking kind of a situation. So that's a really good point there. And as far as the match goes, I guess here's my take, and you guys or the callers can say I don't want to take away from either guy, but Bisping, he didn't look. He didn't look that great. Now he's getting older. He's been more than long overdue for a drop-off. He had a 13-month layoff himself. But is it part of that thing with the Colby Covington versus Damian Maia? Is his striking really that bad? Or, like he said, he was prioritizing the bigger threat, which was the takedown. And against George, obviously the dynamic of his game, as much as his striking has improved, his striking has opened up because of that threat of the takedown. So with that, Bisping knowing that, did he look kind of, slow and sluggish out there in that first round trying to get his timing for a reason? Whereas, again, not taking anything away from George, because on the other end, you had George looking way better than my expectation in that first round. Now, in the second round, people that were on Bisping, like myself, that's when you start to see, oh, well, here's the prediction. Here's what I thought was going to happen. You start to see George tire. You start to see George fatigue. And this is an older version of George. He is carrying more weight. And as I said, even in his last performances before he left, he wasn't as mobile. But George seemed a bit sluggish out there, too. He didn't look, quite as, impressive. Perhaps it's the weight. Perhaps it's the layoff. But I will say, you know what looked good about George, guys? Now, even though I had a hard time seeing Bisping get submitted if he was sober, obviously he wasn't sober. He was George St. Pierre ground and pounded him, caught him on the feet before he got the submission. But it's how George St. Pierre got the submission. Granted, Bisping was rocked, but George St. Pierre, just the technique when I went back to watch how he got the choke, you could really tell that in his time off, George really upped his grappling game. When you're retired or when you're, having head trauma, one of the few things you can do is grapple. And you can tell that time that he's put in with his guys up in Canada or down here in New York, it's really paid off. And it really makes it interesting, being that George St. Pierre's game is a takedown. If he can threaten finishes from there, I'm more excited to see what he can do as far as the upside. But that was my assessment of the skills of that fight.
Yeah.
I don't know, did you guys
there, Danny?
Yeah, we hear you, George.
Yeah, we hear you. I want to put a question out there for the...
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I want to put a question out there for the listeners, and that is this. If they were to run back those 3 fights, the 3 title fights again, would you bet on the same people that you bet going into this card?
Mm-hmm.
I bet Bisping, Joanna, and I bet Dillashaw.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would bet the same people over again. I just feel, props to GSP, but I feel like that's just kind of a one-time thing, and I think Bisping could learn a few things from that fight, seeing some of the things you were talking about and how GSP looked. Maybe he didn't realize that during the fight. I think I'd bet the same thing. How would you bet, Dan?
I would still take Bisping. Still standing by the analysis, even though props to George, man. He caught that left hook. Did a great job. But I actually would sway for Rose and Joanna. Not just because of the moment and being happy for Rose, which I was, but even though I picked Joanna, guys, I was saying the odds were off. Like, there's a path to victory. Joanna gets sat down by punches or taken down in her last 4 fights, and that's what Rose does to girls, and we saw that. Didn't finish with a rear naked choke. All she needed was that left hook. But that showed me a lot, and to not to be careful about doubting Rose, and for the Dillashaw Garbrandt, I was actually coming into this matchup leaning toward Dillashaw, ended up siding toward Garbrandt for the same reason most people, hand speed, foot speed, But with not just TJ winning, I would switch my pick, but also here's this, guys. The intangible going in was TJ, right? He was the one that was kind of jumping camps, going to California. Cody Garbrandt, it was what's broke, don't fix what's not broke, right? He was still at Team Alpha Male. He had the more security coming in, but fight week happens. There's a lot of drama that happened, including not really talked about too much, but Justin Buchholz's departure or semi-departure or displeasure at the very least with Team Alpha Male, and from Campman to Ludwig. I mean, Team Alpha Male's been really hot. They've been really cold, and I think there's some correlation there with the, I don't want to say revolving doors in a rude term. I'm really a fan of what they're doing up there in Team Alpha Male, but yeah, I mean, the coaches has not been too consistent, and now with Buchholz leaving, it kind of worries me going forward. That's an intangible I kind of got to weigh to see what Team Alpha Male does going forward. But TJ, if anything, he proved that, man, he's just a sponge, man. He's going everywhere. He's adding to his game. He's still making improvements each time out, and it's hard to hate on him being a champion again, man. Well deserved, and you can't help but feel good for that guy as far as that goes.
I feel bad for Team Alpha Male because they have great fighters.
Yes,
but in these type of rivalry type fights, right? You know, even when it was like against Novo Niao, like Aldo kind of got the best of Faber.
Yep.
And then you go back to what Dominic Cruz was able to do to that team for the longest time. Cody was really the only one that finally stood up and defended that team, got that victory over Dominic Cruz. And then here we go again with another one of these type of heated rivalry type fights. And again, they fell. Like it sucks to have so many good fighters, but just not always be on the losing end of these types of fights. It almost makes me feel like maybe too much energy is being exerted in trying to hype up fights and all that, and just go in and fight, man. That's all I can think. I mean, Cody, he had his moments. You're right. He was seconds away from winning that fight. Seconds. I think if that round had maybe 10 more seconds, he probably could have got the finish, but somehow TJ got some composure, got some excellent advice in between rounds, and he was able to come back and win that fight. And you saw, as soon as that fight was over, he got right in his face, yelled. Luckily, at the end, it looked like they embraced for a little bit. I don't know what that was worth. I have a feeling all it takes is one tweet or something. They'll be right back in the same boat they were before. But that was a fun fight. And that is a little bit of what I was talking about earlier, a little bit of a back-and-forth fight, because there was a back-and-forth. It was very tactical. And it was a lot of fun, too. And we'll see, man. I mean, I feel like every single one of these fights that we saw, well, except for GSP Bisping, I feel like the other two we'll definitely see again soon.
Yeah.
The question is when, though, right? Because of the fallout from all of the stuff. Like, if you're Rose Namajunas, I mean, if anybody deserves a rematch, it's Joanna, but she was just practically knocked out, right? She's got to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you're Rose and you don't want to face Joanna again, you're probably better off walking in and going, I feel 100%, let's bring on the next person. And you know whoever that is, that person's going to be fired up because they don't want to face Joanna. So you could possibly get that matchup. And then when you look at TJ and Cody, both of them kind of stated that they weren't really interested in a rematch. They want Demetrius Johnson. The thing that I just cannot get over is them wanting to go down to 125 and make it as comfortable as possible for the champion. I would tell him, you come up to 135, but they want to go to 125, so that may be what's next for them. I mean, it's just so many crazy things, man. But anyways, why don't we do this? Let's take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Danny Otto, are you there, by the way?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see if Danny's there, but we can take a quick commercial. And we'll come back and we'll try and reconnect with George, who I think just disconnected. And we'll keep talking about this card. We'll take some calls. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll be back here on MMA Junkie Radio.
Today or suffer a tough loss? Place to talk about it is SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Call in and vent about the players that let you down or brag about your top performers. Fantasy football reaction to all big plays, busts, and injuries right now on Sirius 210, XM87, and the SiriusXM app. All right, we're back. Sorry, I got disconnected there for just a bit, but we're talking about UFC 217 and everything that took place. We kind of talked a lot about Bisping and GSP, moved over to Cody and TJ Dillashaw. So, guys, is there anything else you want to say about that fight? We'll turn it over to some callers, and then we'll talk about that third title fight after we do a round of Junkie Nation.
Are you done, Dan? I'm done.
Yeah, I figured we could just bounce off what the callers have to say about it and go from there.
Well, let me just say one thing here about that fight.
Yep.
It was quite the build-up. I give credit to Cody for handling it with class. He still came back in the post-fight press conference and, let the world know he feels like he's the better fighter, but still would always circle back to congratulating TJ. So I think that's the way to do it. In fact, all the champions kind of handle their losses with class. Still with some swag, a little bit of them. And I know they want it back, but, man, you could just see the pain they were all feeling. And so I got to give them that. It's not easy to go back there and answer questions. And as you've seen, Joanna didn't even want to get compared to Ronda. And I think it's, in many ways, you can just start off with just the way she handled the loss. She went and faced the music. All right, let's talk to Junkie Nation, and then we'll circle back and start looking at what might be next for all 6 of these athletes. Brandon from Louisville, you start things off. What's up, buddy?
So is this the NBA show today?
I guess it was for a bit.
Well, I'll hold off my talk on Donovan Mitchell and his Rookie of the Year season for the Utah Jazz. GSP Bisping. Not really surprised. I mean, a little bit because the 4 year of ring rust is, again, something that's pretty cool to come back from. But Bisping is always kind of the weak link on the championships. My question is, and really for y'all to comment on, they announced some upcoming dates for schedules. And it makes things really interesting on who's going to defend where. St. Louis was announced for a fight night or a Fox card. Really weird that they're not going to run. I can't imagine Tywan's happy not being in St. Louis. Do you think if he gives up pay-per-view points and defends on a Fox card? He's not really a big draw that they need him on a pay-per-view.
But he would be if he had to face GSP. Then all of a sudden that fight is a big draw.
So that's January. That's not going to be a GSP fight.
Exactly. The thing is, he hurt his shoulder, and I think he said the word labrum, which if it's a full tear, that you can be out for a year. That's kind of what's kept Cain Velasquez out on separate occasions. But I think he felt like he could recover from this a little bit sooner with the right therapy. And can he fight in time for that show? I wouldn't think so, because that show's coming up in January. It's on January 14th. We're almost just outside the 8-week window. So unless he had a really, really fast recovery, then that's one thing. 2, it's a fight night, and not that in the past a fight night hasn't hosted a world title, but I just don't see it happening. But I'd love for him to be on it. I think it'd be perfect. So yeah, it does suck, man. The timing of it does suck.
Okay, so we scratched that one. Whitaker, GSP in Perth. I don't see them putting GSP in Australia, right?
Correct. I don't see it either. I think he's more of a Vegas guy or back to Montreal if they go to Canada. And there's the question of, does he even just retire? I mean, that's where I fell off in the conversation. He could just retire and, like Go said, wait for I think he should wait for Conor McGregor to call him out. Because if he calls Conor out, it's the middleweight champion calling out the lightweight champion. I don't think it'll work. But if he just sits back, let's Whitaker say I want GSP, let's Woodley say I want GSP. I mean, picks up traction in 2 weight classes as he decides what's going to happen. He gets healthy. He in air quotes, converges with his team to discuss it all. And in the meantime, maybe these analytics are just popping, and all of a sudden Conor figures out, wait a minute, maybe I need to make this fight. I think he has to allow Conor to call him out, and then that's sail off into the sunset for probably for GSP at that point. So we'll see, man. Like I said, our heads can explode if we really, really explore every single option.
Okay, I'm going to finish up real quick because I know you got guys behind me. So here's my prediction.
Those callers aren't that great, so go ahead, take your time.
That's a good point. Showtime can wait. I'm going to say it's going to be Woodley GSP, the March card in Vegas.
Okay.
I'm going to say they get Connor and Ferguson sometime in the first quick in the year. Maybe Boston. That's been a big pro Connor, Irish Town. Maybe the New Year's card in Vegas. I don't know. International Fight Week. We're going to get, if GSP beats Woodley and Connor beats Tony, we're going to get what they're going to hype as the reigning featherweight and lightweight champion against the middleweight and welterweight champion that July 4th weekend.
Well, it's the reigning lightweight versus the reigning middleweight, but it wouldn't be. Wait, no, what'd you say?
You know what he
so
means.
GSP beats Woodley?
If GSP beats Woodley.
Right. He's not fighting Woodley without giving up middleweight, I imagine. But I hear what you're saying.
They'll find a way to put 4 belts on that poster.
All right, Brandon. Good stuff. Let's go to Showtime in Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's yo time.
What's going on, sir?
What's up,
much.
Showtime?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just fucking trying to pick up the pieces after this weekend, man. This was like the craziest weekend ever. I'm gonna tell you guys something crazy, man. I ended up. I'm actually glad that I threw a little flyer out on the dogs on Rose, TJ, and I think I did under with the GSP Bisbee fight going under 4.5. I think that's the only thing, man, that kind of saved me for the weekend because Walt Harris killed about 5 of my tickets, man. 5 of them, guys.
Big ticket
I would have made out like a fat cat. He killed 5 of them. I'm like, come on, man. I was basically
that hurt a lot of people, including Walt. So yeah, I'm not so sure. We will talk to Walt today. He's one of our 2 guests. He's pretty pissed off. He's pretty pissed off about being called a cheater and you know the loss, the money he was supposed to take home. You know, so there'll be a lot to talk about with him there. But yeah, I can imagine that was a parlay buster.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, Walt lives about 2 hours from me in Birmingham, so I followed this guy for a while, so I know he didn't do that maliciously. You know, it just happens. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the battle, man, you're fighting, and sometimes stuff just happens. So I'm not mad at that because you know that when you put your money, when you bet it, that's the type of stuff that happens, man. But what about Rose, man? God, woo. Rose, you know what? When I saw her playing, guys, when she started saying she was praying, something then I was like, either Rose is scared or Rose is ready. That's what I was, really just saying to myself, when I watched the weigh-in. I'm like, either she's scared or she's ready. And shit, she was ready, man. You can't, I like how Joanna handled it, talking to the media and not running and not saying anything. She did it like a champ. Cody did too, man. So hats off to, everybody on that card, man. That was a hell of a card, guys.
Hey, not to be a funny guy or anything, but she has been going by Joanna Champion. Mm-hmm. She's not a champion anymore. Is that just a nickname that kind of sticks with you, or does she have to get rid of it?
She definitely has got to get rid of it. Yeah, I didn't really use that one with her.
Well, no, because when I see Randy Couture, I call him champ. I think once you become a champ, you can call someone a champ. But I don't know about a nickname of champion.
Yeah, champ is more indoctrinated.
She's still the longest reigning champ in that division, right? I mean, technically, I think she could maybe get away with it, but I don't know. I mean, she seems like the type of person that wouldn't want to be called that if she wasn't that.
I think because it's a nickname, right? Whereas champ, that's more of an indoctrinated in our culture from boxing to MMA. Mm-hmm. That transfers, right? You don't have to have a nickname as champ, whereas that's her nickname technically. So I think that's what kind of disqualifies her from that hypothetical. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, I don't even think she'll feel comfortable with it until I think what she's hoping is that the topic just doesn't come up. She regains her title, and then now you can call her that again, and then she probably hopes she'll never lose after that. But I don't know. That's a tough one. Maybe some people will just as a pick-me-up still call her that. But that other topic of calling people champ goes, I thought about that the other day. It's like we're gonna have to call a lot of people champs, man. There's so much turnover in MMA, and I feel like in boxing that came more from saying it to someone who was a champion and had a legacy and just was champ for a while. You know what I mean? Not like just someone that had like poor Cody. I don't mean to bash him or anything like that, but he didn't even have a title defense. Bisping only had the one. You know what I mean? So, like I think Joanna kind of earned being called champ probably for the rest of her life. Like you said, Couture as well. But there's a lot of them that have become champion, and then that's it. MMA is just a sport we're going to have to get used to that, is like hockey or baseball, where all of a sudden, the Florida Marlins won, the Kansas City Royals won, and the next year, where they at? Oh, they're in last place, or they didn't make the playoffs, and anyway, back to what you were saying, Showtime. Sucks about the parlays. Hopefully, you made up enough on the one that you hit to make up for it. I do agree the champions handled themselves with class. And as far as what Rose goes, that prayer stuff was a little freaky, man. Joe Rogan was talking a little bit about it. You got the boogie woman on one side, another one saying a prayer. So that was pretty freaky. But who called Rose via strikes? No one. I don't think so. Most of us said if she can backpack her, or if she can get a takedown, or if she can take the back. In the first round, that almost happened. Early in the first round, it almost happened where she did it. But like Dan Tom had told us in his breakdown, Joanna's so good at getting up and not exposing her back because she gets up along the cage. As soon as she did it, I go, nice. That's exactly what Dan Tom was saying. But so much stuff was happening there. The fact that Rose did it via strikes was simply amazing. Credit to her work with Trevor Whitman. I think a few of us did mention that Joanna has been put down before. So seeing her get knocked down didn't surprise me. She's been knocked down before, but still, usually she grabs a hold of the fight and dictates where it's going to go, and then just smashes her opponent. And lastly, a big shout out to Derek Brunson, who tweeted earlier in the day he was going to put $10,000 on Rose. And I swear to God, it took everything I had to not write, man, Mandalay Bay is going to send a limo, something to pop off. But I figured, it's fight day. I think we have great relationships across the board. Let's not jinx anybody or diminish anybody. Let's just leave that alone. But that's probably what I was feeling, was just it's not going to happen. Joanna's an all-time great, and here she is. She hit it. Derek Brunson must have made anywhere between 40 and 50,000. Because what's her face? Nama Yunus came back at plus 400, plus 420. Who knows if he shopped around and even got a plus 500? But tip of the hat to Derek Brunson.
Dude, he's got paid for a fight right there. That's like a payday. Crazy, that's like show money right there. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey, guys, I got one more thing. I wonder if I was just messing around on Facebook. I said I wondered if Vegas Dave took Rose and TJ, and I'm out of here on that one.
All right, my man. Let's go to the next caller. Who is it? Marco from Waco. What's up, Marco?
Marco from Waco. ¿Qué pasa, vatos?
¿Qué pasa?
I just got out of a poo-poo emergency with my 2-year-old, dude.
What happened?
Poop everywhere.
Oh, poop?
Well, she took her diaper off. Yeah, she took her diaper off with poop on it. So, poop everywhere.
You want to go tend to that?
Huh?
You want to go tend to that, and we'll put you back
I already did. It's all taken care of, but it was like,
okay.
It was ugly.
You want a shower, dog? Like take a shower or something? That sounded pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's in my raccoon wounds.
It's already taken care of, man. It happened 15 minutes ago. Still home. Hey, so what can I say about this card to 17, dude? It surpassed all expectations. Holy crap. From the first fight on, man, from Ramos knocking out Sahabi with a spinning elbow. Then we got OSP that left high kick to Cody Anderson. James Vick murking Joseph Duffy. Bojadinha probably sent Johnny Hendricks to Bellator because, that was a bad look for Johnny. Holy shit, man. I don't know what is left for Johnny there. And then the three new champions. I'll tell you right now, I would never think Rose was going to win like that. I'm so happy for her. But the whole week, and my wife called it. My wife is really perceptive. Joanna sounded like Ronda when she lost her title, talking about going undefeated and thinking about the next legacy, the next fight, and surprises, and nobody else is going to beat her. And my wife told me, she sounds like Ronda when she lost. Next thing you know, she gets knocked out. It kind of sort of jinxed herself. And then what can I say about TJ and George St. Pierre, dude? The guy was so fantastic. I got out of words for it. That's all I had to say for today, guys. Peace out.
All right, see ya. The guys said that on the broadcast too. Some similarities to Ronda's loss, and more of it had to do with. Remember, Ronda got really, really upset and tried to make it personal with Holly Holm, and it didn't really appear that Holly Holm was doing anything from her end. Same could be said for Rose, and yet Joanna was just coming after her, man, like she had burned her house down or something like that. But that's the way Joanna psychs herself up, and that's what has us talking so much about Joanna. And at the same time, Joanna thinks a businesswoman, man. She's also trying to figure out, like, hey, you know, I only have a few of these, and then I probably want to become a mom and then, you know, retire undefeated. So if I have to take, you know, a page out of Sonnen or Covington or Flair or whoever's book and be a little bit of the bad guy or the intimidator or whatever, then I'm all in. So I applaud her for going for it. She came up short, but it doesn't take away from her greatness. She can still come back, avenge that loss, and you know, still go down as one of the all-time greats. Right now, obviously, I think Cyborg has poked her head clear and above everyone else when it comes to that talk. But yeah, I know exactly what Marco's saying. All right, who's the next call? Let's go to Vegas Ford. What's up, Ford?
Oh, hey guys. Sorry, you guys caught me eating. I was eating these banging peanut butter sandwiches over here that Johnny Rico sent to me. I wanted to give a call in today, you know, and just because I'll take my medicine when I'm wrong, but I'll also take credit when I'm right. And Jason Lackey really wanted me to call in today and talk to you guys and celebrate that win by TJ. You know, I'll tell you guys, another thing too is everybody keeps saying that Cody has handled himself with class in his defeat. That's bullshit. This guy, he went back into the shit talking mode. He started calling TJ names again, and then he sat there during the press conference and did nothing but make excuses, and then say, "But I got no excuses." Come on, guys. This guy is a joke. Team Alpha Fail is a joke. If he actually was serious about moving forward in his career, what he would do is he would do the same thing that Joe B did, and he would go and he would train underneath that striking genius, Dwayne Ludwig. And that's all I got for you guys today.
All right, Ford. Thanks for the call.
Easy, Ford.
All right. I guess what I mean is, yes, there were moments where he handled the defeat in class, I believe. And sure, since then, did he say a few things? You know, I think he was very clear about saying, I respect TJ as a competitor, but as a person, these are the feelings I have. He answered that question because I think John Morgan or somebody said, hey, can you now put it aside, blah, blah, blah. So now he's forced to answer, look, as a competitor, obviously, he just kicked my ass, hats off to him, but personally, I don't like him for these reasons. Sure, I guess you could hold back and say, as a competitor, I respect him, but personally, I do not like Mr. TJ Dillashaw. I think he would get probed more. Well, why not? You know, you see what I'm saying? So I think he just felt like he's a fighter, man. He's a fighter. He's going to speak his mind, and he said, hey, the line, the this, the that, whatever. He broke up our team. So, yeah, I guess there was some moments where he could have been a little bit better, but where's the fun in that? I think there has to be a build-up to the rematch. When he needed to say it, he said it, and I think he said it from the heart. The best man beat me tonight. You know, I lost this, that, or whatever. The one thing he did say, I guess, was, I still feel like I'm the better fighter. I just got caught. So is that an excuse? I suppose it is. But, you know, how much more can you really get, you know what I mean, from someone as fiery as Cody Garbrandt? If he wasn't like that, he wouldn't be Cody Garbrandt. If he wasn't like that, we wouldn't have looked as much forward to Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. You see what I'm saying? There has to be a little bit of Cody Garbrandt. Otherwise, this fight wouldn't be as big of a deal, and Jason Lackey wouldn't be calling in Ford to tell him to call into the MMA Junkie radio show because it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. See, that's why we're not talking about other fights. Other fights weren't as big of a deal. You know, they didn't have heat or drama. It wasn't for a title, so there has to be a little bit of that, and you have to concede and give them a little bit of that. Anyway, I picked TJ. So that's the result that makes me look better on MMA Junkie stat picks or whatever. But, man, Cody was fighting pretty good, you know, during that fight. You know, he had his moments. So I can't wait for the rematch. And I think this one can really be built up, but it's going to have to get nasty again.
Is it going to happen, though? Because I got to feel like Mighty Mouse may be the guy that's in that driver's seat for the next fight.
That's a good point. And, you know, Dillashaw is now going after greatness. This whole thing about being a champion in 2 weight classes, this is Dillashaw's chance. He says he can make the weight, you know, go down to 125 and stop that streak that Mighty Mouse has going. And, of course, it could be a money fight for both guys. It could be champion versus champion. I don't think TJ would have to relinquish. He'd have to make sure he tells Dana, hey, look, I'm ready to do this soon. Because if there's some sort of a delay, like 6 months, or he's focusing on this and not being the champion at 135, now all of a sudden we have a stale division. We can't have that because Cruz and Rivera are banging it out soon. and the winner of that's going to want to fight at some point in 2018, probably spring or summer. So it has to make sense for someone to do this. They have to be 4-time a year type of champion. Otherwise, it's just not going to function. One more call, and then we'll take our last break. It's Samson from California. What's up, Samson?
I want to talk to Samson.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What up?
Man, that was an amazing card. I threw a nice big UFC party, and that it just totally delivered. Even the people that weren't that into MMA was enjoying it. Probably the best card I ever paid for. I love that GSP won, but I was a little upset that his little speech afterwards kind of sounded like he was ducking out of defending it. That's just kind of what I got from it. I think Robert Whitaker might kill him. It was good to see him come back and win, man. That was cool.
Yeah, man. A lot of people feel that way. And maybe that was GSP's best way of describing the same feelings without seeming like a pussy or anything like that.
He was pretty honest about it, though, right?
He gave credit to Bisping's power and the size difference, and whatever.
I don't know. I'm more.
Cody had to go and fill my parlay.
That's a tough one to parlay on, Samson. But I will second you. I was more along your side where that post fight speech rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if I articulated it at the top of the show the best, but yeah, it felt very politician like. And again, I'm granted I'm not a fan of the political politician approach of picking the fights. And yeah, but at the same time, I don't think Whitaker is a great matchup for George. I would be siding with Whitaker there.
All right, guys. Appreciate the time and love the show, man. Have a good one.
Thank you, sir.
Easy, Samson.
All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We're recapping UFC 217 and all the action from the weekend. We'll take your calls at 866-522-2846 if you want to call in and chime in and on any of this discussion. Also, a lot of you have been bugging me, man. Texts, emails, DMs, you name it. Hey, how did that breakdown go between you, Goes, and Dan? Well, I got the results.
It's a busy day, though. Are you sure?
I got 3 right. Goes and Dan got 2 right. So guess what? GG, who was in last place last week, came back to win the unofficial picks contest on MMA Junkie Radio this week. And with that, we'll go to break. Stay close. We'll be right back.
to reschedule that meeting. Call your wife and tell her lunch is off. It's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes.
Your favorite holiday music channels are back on SiriusXM. Check out contemporary holiday favorites on Holly, Channel 70, and holiday traditions on Channel 4. You can get a complete holiday lineup at Sirius. That's not complete, Danny. At Sirius what? It just says at Sirius, but I imagine SiriusXM.com and... Well, what the hell? Just go to
the holiday
70
channel.
for Holly.
We're taking time to finish the read. It's still it's in the works. It's the holiday.
Ah, I got you. All right.
They give you one more line each week leading to the holidays.
Fair enough. Again, 70 and 4 for more holiday traditional type of music.
Have you ever kissed someone under mistletoe, George?
I think so. I think I finally, like I was probably the guy that probably took the longest to ever pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I have.
I got jacked up by that one time. And it was actually, I think it was Rodney's fault. He pointed it out, and it was, I don't want to say who, but let's just say it wasn't one of my favorites in school. And he tricked me into standing somewhere by her and then went, hey, aren't you guys standing? And then everybody did the you, and I had to do it. It was not fun.
So this was high school?
No, this was junior high.
Junior high, ooh.
And your stupid buddy, Louie,
nice one, Rodney.
got me good, too. But go ahead.
Did he?
Yeah, at a school
How
dance.
did he get you? Same thing?
One of George's buddies was a DJ, and he would DJ our school dances. So he would always embarrass me on the microphone and go, this song was called out by Brian Garcia. And then it'd be like Wham or something stupid like that.
Go stage 4. Go stage 4.
Oh, man. All right. Let's talk to Hal from Chicago, and then we'll exit the first hour and then come back talking a little bit more Joanna and Rose. See what's next for both ladies. I think immediate rematch wouldn't be out of line because Joanna's held the belt for so long, and of course Joanna did leave it open. Hey, whatever the UFC decides, if I have to build myself up, I'll do it. I don't think she should have said that, but regardless, there is that opening in case Rose wants to possibly avenge any of her losses, and just maybe anything inject a little bit of a fresh taste to that division, man, because this girl Joanna was cleaning it out, man. It was starting to become a little stale. All right, Hal, what's up, man?
Man, it's not often that I get to call in and brag about a win. A lot of people like to say I'm the mush, but my tongue on its toes.
Oh, why?
So calling everybody irresponsible for betting on the greatest fighter that ever lived. I know it's a layoff, but Yeah. All right. You know what? Forget it. No stun gun for goals. The stun gun is for Jack Del Rio for not just running out the clock last night, and then dumbass threw the interception, and it blew my cover. I had the under, and I had Raiders -3, and they ruined it. They should have just ran out the clock. So the stun gun's for Jack Del Rio. But no, you're right, Goes. I can't blame anybody for being nervous about that pick. But come on, man. I mean, So the thing with me was GSP has never done anything half-assed. So whatever he's done, you just know that he's like 100% ready. And so that was my confidence with him. And this is why he's the greatest. Not even I could mush the GOAT.
That's true. That's a real strong point.
What a night. What a night. All right, guys. Talk to you later, man. A great night of fights, man.
Easy out.
All right, see you, Hal.
He's got strong
shout out to
too.
Junkie Nation, man. Guys like Hal, are one of the pillars of many reunions, and I saw a lot of them out there. Now, this weekend it didn't involve Hal, but it was really cool to see Muna from San Francisco hanging out with Martin Stabilo from Hawaii. They took in UFC 217. Darius from Poland, who lives in New York, he was hanging out with Chase from Tough Prince out in New York City. They both were at the event, obviously. And how about Big Al from Thousand Oaks hanging out with Sam All Jam in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania?
Saw that.
It's incredible. Junkie Nation is so powerful, so united. I know sometimes there's some bickering, but lately I've been seeing a lot of people just say, hey, agree to disagree, or I'm bowing out, or you got me, and kind of cool, to see that a little bit rather than the constant headbutting that goes on. Regardless, I'm not trying to be Principal George over here or nothing like that, but let's go to the second hour. We'll do some breaks, and then we'll come back and talk about everything we have been talking about on the MMA Junkie Radio Show.
Champagne, pop. It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door and the night begins. Cause we done this before, so you come on in. Make yourself at my home, tell me where you been. Pour yourself something cold, baby, cheers to this. Sometimes you gotta stay in, and you know where I live. Yeah, you know what we is. Sometimes you gotta stay in. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while.
All right, here we go with the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. What's that tune called?
Welcome
My
to
House.
my house. I think
Who sings it?
Flo Rida, who I
I
thought
like it.
was Florida for the longest time.
I know, dude. That's why I'm so scared to even talk about music nowadays. Because for all I know, like let's just say Flo Rida was a one-hit wonder, and then people, oh, do you like that guy? He dropped the one tune, and that's it. He's never been back. So
I thought it was a typo
much on music
on iTunes. I thought it was all funny. It happened on the air, and somebody goes, "No, man, that's Flo Rida." I was like, "Whatever."
Yeah, the first time I saw it, I think I thought that too. But luckily, I came across somebody saying it right away, so I was able to figure it out. But I've fallen for a few of those. How about? Do you remember Vanderlei Silva when he was on our show in studio? I asked him what kind of music he liked and what he liked to do in Vegas. So this was literally at 2008, I think. And, he said one of the things he likes, believe it or not, is electronic music. And I asked him who were some of your favorites. I think he mentioned the obvious ones like Tiesto. But at the time, Deadmau5 was really, really popular. And he called them Deadmau5. Deadmau5. Because he didn't know that the 5 was the S for Dead Mouse. So he called it Deadmau5. And I said, oh, Deadmau5. And he said, what? And then I didn't want to embarrass him, so I just go, never mind, And then I told him afterwards. And he kind of went, and did that. So I spared him a little bit. But
I can picture that.
That shit happens, man. You get older, you just, you start to get less cool. Shout out to Roll One, Smoke One on YouTube. He's in Scotland. Thanks for tuning in, mate. The Human Moron is back. Wishing us a happy Monday. Josito, Tomito, and Danito. So nice. I don't know who that is. I think Gozito's obviously Goes. Tomito must be Dan Tom. And Danito must be Danny. What the fuck? What about me? No shout out to me.
No Georgito.
Giovanni Blesdorf. He says, what's up? What's up back to you, partner? Pierre Huard says GSP's the best. You know what, man? I made that argument on Saturday. I think GSP proved that right now he's the greatest fighter that ever fought in mixed martial arts. It's subjective. I get it. But still, he won 2 titles in 2 different divisions. He avenged every loss he had. He won the trilogy that was mixed up with Matt Hughes. He has 9 title defenses, if I'm not mistaken. Some huge win streaks. So I just believe he bested anything that Anderson Silva did. John Jones, of course, there's still going to be this little cloud that hangs over him. Let's see how he comes out of this deal that he's got, that he's appealing, because a lot of people felt like maybe we had seen the best fighter ever when John Jones defeated Daniel Cormier. And now that might have taint on it. We don't know. Demetrius Johnson obviously can make a case for himself, but he hasn't won a title in 2 divisions. He has more title defenses than GSP. I don't know. We can go on for days with this shit. But in my opinion, I just think GSP was always in the conversation. Now to come back and do that, that's fucking amazing to me. So anyway, that's definitely a topic out there for anybody that wants to discuss it. Guys, what do you want to see next with Joanna and Rose? If not an instant rematch, who would you like to see Rose fight next?
It's tough, dude, because, who doesn't? Joanna deserves an instant title matchup, but I kind of don't want to see it. I kind of want to see one of these other girls get a shot before, and I would think maybe Jessica Andrade, I think
that's a really fun matchup, but to be honest, I'd be okay with the rematch. I think it still has legs in it. We saw 2 Gedalia fights, except the difference was you couldn't really get the rivalry as strong even with a tough build-up because Joanna had scoreboard. Well, now she's starting off at a handicap. which to me, in theory, feels that they could wring this out a little longer and perhaps get that rivalry that the division needs. So, but maybe they don't rush it. We'll see. But I don't see a clear-cut contender, with exception of Andrade probably being the closest to that.
Yeah, I would say Andrade because she eliminated Gadelia. So again, we're saying if Joanna doesn't get the next shot, so that eliminates her. And then Andrade eliminated Gadelia in Japan a few months ago, sorry. And then the only other one is Karolina Kowalkiewicz. But here's why she has a case. She's coming off a win, and she beat Rose. She gave Rose her last loss. So if the champion has any clout whatsoever, perhaps that's their opportunity to say, hey, I'd sure love to avenge this loss and defend it versus someone that's obviously ranked in the top 5 and someone who's coming off a win. So it may work out, but that would be difficult, I think, to overlook Jessica Andrade at this point. She I would think would be the leader there. As far as Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt, do you guys agree that Dillashaw versus Johnson is the fight to make while everything else gets sorted out? Bantamweight?
I agree it is the fight to make, but I want to see it at 135. I don't want to see it at 125.
I think it's the fight to make, and again, you have another, your back pocket if you want a rivalry you can ring out and bring to that division as well when the time comes to run it back. So yeah, I'm with you guys on that though.
What division do you want to see it at, Dan?
Well, I think I would like to see that fight at 125 as far as a TJ versus Mighty Mouse, but I'm saying for the Garbrandt versus TJ, you still have another rivalry you can ring out for that division up there. So it seems like bantamweight's got a lot of options right now.
I would say that I agree with Goes. I wish there was more of a storyline built for DJ moving up to 35, but I feel like DJ kind of put a stopgap to that about a year ago. He concerned himself more with breaking records, which he has, and I feel like TJ beat him to the punch by saying, I want to go down and win that title. So it's almost like he took more control over where the multiple weight class champion can be.
Yeah.
Now DJ does have enough power where I believe he could say, I've been at this longer as a champion. I want to go up and challenge you. And then, of course, if he does that, now that whole GSP versus Jones versus Anderson Silva versus Mighty Mouse talk, things could really heat up if Mighty Mouse could get a title there. Now, could Mighty Mouse do it and also leave 125 and say, hey, I'm vacating for now. You guys all figure this out. That would make 125 fun again, and DJ would definitely be going for some history. Or could he do it and also say, I'll be back, I'm just putting this on hold as I chase it at 135? I don't know, but I feel like TJ beat him to the punch by saying I want to go down and break that streak, and and again, DJ hasn't shown much. He hasn't shown much interest in going up, but rather than defending at 25. So that'll be interesting to see where that figures itself out. Okay, are you guys ready for another one?
Yeah, I got one for you too, though.
Sure, go ahead.
If you were to bet, I think this happened when you disconnected, but if you were to bet the 3 title fights from this weekend, if they all rematched, would you bet the same people again?
One more time?
Okay, who did you bet between GSP and Bisping?
GSP.
Okay, and Joanna and what's her name?
Well, I didn't bet her.
Rose?
I actually bet Rose.
Who you picked, in other words?
Yeah, no, Joanna. I picked Joanna, TJ, and GSP. So,
right, so
2 of the 3 won, but I did technically put 25 on Rose just because I respected Brunson's balls so much that I thought, I'll ride with him. What the hell, I'm not going to put -7 on Joanna. I had a feeling I said goodbye to that 25, but that 25 turned into $111. I was laughing my ass off.
Because in the morning we were talking odds, and we were trying to figure out what the odds would be for these rematches, and I'm not so sure that the odds would reflect what actually happened.
Dude, the way Joanna or Rose owned Joanna, I think Joanna might still be favored, but not by that. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was even closer to even. I mean, Rose was a stud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Joanna didn't have any moments. Cody had a moment. Bisping had a moment. In fact, Cody had one hell of a moment. He almost finished the fight. Bisping was starting to turn the page, whereas Joanna, it just wasn't her night. She got stifled from the very beginning.
What's your other one?
The other one is, what did you think of Woodley saying, rather than let's do this at 70. Now he's also chasing his moment of glory by saying, I want to fight GSP at 185. Interesting, right? That he's at least, looking at it that way. Hey, I might as well make history. I'm going to fight this guy, and by the time we rehydrate, we'll probably be the same weight. But I'd love to be the champ at 185.
I think it's all interesting, but it's a beast that Conor McGregor and the UFC have built. Now that's something that we have to look at because of those two numbnuts putting together that sort of blueprint and formula. Now it's something we're always going to have to deal with divisions, and especially once they change them and they're all 10 pounds apart, we're going to see a lot of that, dude.
Yeah. That's why they have to set criteria. Hey, defend at least 3 times, and then we'll have the conversation. Until then, almost like when you go into someone's dojo or their gym and, hey, shoes on or off, or whatever, and someone just kind of points to a sign. Same thing. Where when these fighters come in and say, Dana, hey, thanks for taking the time to see me. This is what I want to do. And if Dana could just point to something and say, hey, look, it was the Wild West, but as of now, this is the rule. These are the rules, or this is what we're really strongly leaning towards. So don't even bring it up. It's going to happen. This kind of stuff is going to happen. Now, I will say this, and then I think Dan wants to say a word or two. I will say this. As much as we come in and say, and not us personally, we as a group, MMA fans, media, oh, man, the UFC, 125 buys for the one in Canada and the one in Vegas, they only had 150 buys. It's collapsing. It's doing this. It's doing that. Well, it could be that the UFC is also going, fuck, 125, 150. Shit, we could collapse if we don't do shit soon. I know. Let's allow these crazy things to happen because guess what? That's where we get our 800,000 buys or a million buys. And so at the same time, there is a method to their madness on that side. And that's maybe why they have to do these things. Can't have it both ways. And again, it's not directed towards Goes or Dan or anyone in particular. It's just a collective thought for anybody that has said the opposite.
No, that's a really true point there, George. And about the Woodley thing, it's an example of kind of what you said as far as the TJ thing, taking scoreboard, taking initiative. And what Goes said, these are monsters that we created, or maybe not we, but the UFC, in this situation, created. And circling those points, again, back to my original point of the show of the funny taste that I'm having a trouble describing when I should be really happy at this end of the end of the card is because I'm seeing it fuel options like these. And like we said, guys, we're talking about storylines. We wish there was more of a storyline for the DJ TJ. That's what's missing here. I mean, with Liddell was running the division. He was the poster boy. Couture, coming down. Tim Sylvia. It was tough action at heavyweight division. It wasn't deep, but yet nobody could knock off this big guy Tim Sylvia. Randy comes out of retirement. Matt Hughes was on his 5th title defense. Was about to set his record, making 6 straight. Then out of nowhere, this lightweight comes up. Eating McDonald's and training for 2 weeks named BJ Penn and knocks him off his butt. I mean, there were certain narrative stories, that really made these things blossom beautifully and burn itself into our history books. And now we're just calling our shots without anything. I got name power. I got this resume. Well, I'm throwing this around. Well, I'm throwing my resume around. And it's this chest bumping contest. And maybe I'm too much of a purist, guys, because there is a method to the madness. George is right. Especially in a down year, depending on who you ask, not Dana White if you ask him, but especially on a year like this, we do need these big matchups. So I'm torn, man. I'm torn, but that's my opinion.
You want that Mortal Kombat tower, right? You want to just climb it up and see all the way up to the top. It makes sense, but we can't get that anymore.
Well, shoot, Tony Ferguson had to climb that Mortal Kombat tower. Tyron Woodley in his own way had to climb that Mortal Kombat tower. Robert Whittaker had to climb that Mortal Kombat tower. But, yeah, I don't know if those guys are going to get their due.
You brought something up that I wanted to address. Dana White during the week said this is the biggest year that the UFC's had. Even though many are calling it a down year because for many years the UFC's been pegged as a pay-per-view business. That's their bread and butter. That's where the big money comes in. What's that song?
Mortal Kombat.
Oh, okay. And I thought we were going to commercial.
No.
All right. And so he said it during the week, and without having context, like, wait a minute, who asked the question? Where's the link? I left it alone. But specifically, he was asked at the post-fight about that, and he did not back down. He said, this is our best year by far. So obviously he didn't state, well, this is what we've done on the Fight Pass front and the international TV contract front or anything else. He didn't address that, but he did say that this is the biggest year they've ever had. Now, I wish the writers would have pushed them a little bit more because obviously in 2016, I think they sold over 5 million pay-per-views between Ronda and the 3 Conor fights and then everything else they did, 5 or 6 million. This year, nowhere close to that, so where's that revenue coming from? Granted, Maymac had a great payday for him, but was that enough to make up for all the other events that weren't as hot? I don't know. Now, let's not forget 800,000 were sold for the Anaheim card with Jones and DC. If this one's trending over 1 million, then throw those 3 together with Maymac and maybe a strong ending with 218 and 219, perhaps. But, man, wouldn't you love to know what these other streams of revenue are for the UFC to not only top 2016, but top it by far in a year where they've also paid out way more in salaries, too. Not only are pay-per-views down, they're paying out more in salaries. I don't know. Did you guys catch that? Do you think that was interesting at all?
I thought it was interesting, but I feel like I bash these guys, but I really don't. I really respect what they do, but I just wish they would get away from saying shit like that because there's so many fighters that are fighting for that big paycheck, and it's like, why tell them you're making all this money? It's not like shitting in their face, but just say, hey, things are going well. The lights are still on here. But every time they say something like this, I think fighters just salivate and go, well, how come we're not getting our piece? And it turns into that big old thing, that pissing match.
So do you think, and then I guess that's true too, but do you guys think that this could be a part of negotiating tactics for, the TV situation that's supposed to be getting sorted out this year? And then also, to add to that, how much of it, like George said, he didn't give us the breakdown of how much is this from this, and maybe he is telling the truth, I dare say, but maybe that truth is a truth that comes from, the May-Mac proceeds and stuff like that, how much of it's from that. So it's real tough to try to figure out there.
Guys, let's take a break. We are going to take in a call here the night before at Bellator 186. I don't know if you guys saw it, but let me tell you something. There was an amazing KO there that took place. And I'm not talking about the Bader fight or the Phil Davis fight. Those guys went in there. They did some work. Bader defended his title. Davis and Ed Ruth, both Nittany Lions, they won their fights. I'm talking about on the undercard, Taiwan Claxton defeated Jonathan Bowman with a flying knee, one that I've never seen anything like before. On the levels of MVP, well, no, a skull wasn't crushed, but just the technique itself, the athleticism, man, it was something, man. It has to be up there as far as possible KO of the month or KO of the year talk. I'm telling you,
who's gonna beat that?
It was sick. Yeah, it was something else. It was very unique. So we'll talk to Tywan when we come back. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Walt Harris after that, and then we'll take some more calls to end the show. Some postman is gonna cry.
They're so fat, they gave Dracula diabetes. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
Did your fantasy football team win yesterday or suffer a tough loss? The place to talk about it is on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Call in and vent about the players that let you down or brag about your top performers. Fantasy football reaction to all the big plays, busts, and injuries right now on Sirius 210, XM87, and the SiriusXM app. All right, so we're going to put all of the reaction to this past weekend. We'll put that to the side. Right now, let's talk to one of our two guests for the day. He goes by the name of Taiwan Claxton. They call him Speedy. And he had an amazing debut at Bellator 186, which took place on Friday. He ended the fight via KO, a flying knee, one that we've never really seen before just because of the athleticism involved, the ground that was covered. It was amazing. You got to check it out if you haven't. Joining us now on the hotline is Speedy Claxton. What's up, Speedy? How you doing?
What's up? How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us here on MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan. Amazing flying knee on Friday night. Props to you, my man. That's up for KO of the month, KO of the year. That was really, really highlight reel stuff.
Thank you, man. You know, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love. I wanted to go out there and start my career off with a bang, and that's exactly what I did.
How do you practice something like that without hurting your training partners? I mean, do you have to kind of do it on one of those dummy bags that stand still, or you know, or was this just instinctual because you covered so much ground, and at the same time, it's like in midair, you grabbed a tie plum to secure the position that you wanted, you know, to zero in on your target, and then delivered the actual knee itself.
You know, when I'm actually practicing this in training, I do the exact same thing. I just grab the knee, I grab the head, but I push their head backwards. So that way, I know that I'm not going to hit my training partners. They all yell at me about it, but I push the head backwards, and that stops any contact from actually happening. But inside the cage, I was in be kill mode, so I went ahead and grabbed his head and smashed it. You know, I knew that he was worried about wrestling. You know, everybody's worried about wrestling. So I said, you know, I'm gonna put this jab out there, set some low kicks up, switch from low to high. You know, fake the jab and then went up high, and I rewatched it, and I didn't realize I was that far away. But man, it was a nice long jump.
It was. You look like one of those triple jumpers at the Olympics. You know, like that how they do the actual 3 jumps, and looked like you were doing the middle one, man. You covered a lot of ground. It was really, really sick. But I wanted to ask you, what was the reaction like from either the Bellator staff or even the other fighters? Because your fight was on the prelim, so there was still about another 7 or 8 that had to happen. And then, you know, there's a lot of people that were left with the impression of like, whoa, did you see that? Did you kind of get that reaction from, you know, your colleagues, the other fighters, or even the Bellator suits?
Absolutely, from the Bellator staff, from the other fighters, it was nothing but love, you know. And I was like, man, this kind of cool, you know. My phone was blowing up. I got Sprint, so you know I didn't get every single message until I got out of the arena, and it was blowing up like crazy. My Twitter's going wild, my Instagram's going wild. I got girls that never talked to me slide in my DMs. I was feeling the love, you know. I was like, oh man, this is really great.
By the way, did you you just gave Sprint some love, but then at the same time bashed him? I think that's what you said. I got Sprint, so I wasn't able to get until I left the arena. So anyway, that's cool. That's cool. Even the DMs are flowing, huh?
Even my DMs are popping. You can't ask for anything more than that.
Taiwan Claxton, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio, coming off a huge win at Bellator 186. It was a first round KO, a flying knee. He beat Johnny Bonilla Bowman that night. All right, Goes and Dan, what do you have for Speedy Claxton?
Well, Tywan, actually...
One second. Yeah. One second, guys. Can I... I'm going to make the official announcement. You know, I was going to make a post, but we're going to make it on here. Speedy Claxton died with my amateur career. It's Air Claxton now.
Air Claxton?
Basketball got Air Jordan, and MMA got Air Claxton.
I like it.
Nice.
That is pretty dope. Hey, Eric Claxton. So when Anthony Pettis did the Showtime kick, I remember Duke Rufus said, "That's nothing. He's been working on other things that we haven't seen." So my question for you, are there other finishing moves that you've been practicing in the training room that we still haven't seen?
I'm a wild man. So half the things that most people won't try, I will try. And so I have a lot of very explosive and dangerous moves that a lot of people won't see coming. So to answer your question, absolutely yes. This is the first one I was comfortable throwing. I still have ones that I'm like, that might be a little too wild or a little too dangerous. So, once I get comfortable throwing those in practice, I'll be throwing them in fights still.
Does the knee have a name?
We can just call it the Eric Claxton.
The Eric Claxton? I like that. Do you like that, Dan?
Eric Claxton.
I like that. It kind of sounds like Eric Clapton, but it's great because you are the contrast of steady hands, Eric Clapton, sir. You get the air, you have the speed, and I think it's a good nickname.
I've definitely never seen one like that before. I was telling the guys during the break that I actually thought my TV had glitched. That's how fast you made it across the cage. I went, holy shit, I was going to call Cox Cable and go, what the fuck? My service just glitched. Some guy just flew across the cage. And I know there's some kind of delay or something, but Dan, what do you have for us?
Well, hold on.
Huh?
Before Dan asks this question, this is what I thought. Seriously. Have you ever seen when they go, hey, behind the making of a movie, and they'll show the stuntman and how they're they're running from a building, and then there's this explosion, and the way the explosion's done is obviously there's these springboards that allow the people to fly it. That's what it looked like. I'm not kidding around. Just because Eric Claxton's on the show right now, it was like one of those we had to rewind it 2-3 times and see. You almost think, hey, did the other guy almost throw the fire? Like, how the fuck does this go down? Like, how does someone do all this in the air? But of course, if you look at the Bonilla Bowman's reaction, you can tell hey, he didn't want to be there. That's for damn sure. It was really special. But, sorry, proceed, Dan.
No, I agree. It felt like I was watching like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like they had the strings attached to the guy. But hey, Tywan, I'm looking at your Instagram here, man, and I want to ask you actually about your ground game because a man who helped me be here today as far as helping me understand how to break down fights and understand the game was Neil Melanson. I'm very close with Neil, and I see here you've been working with him down at Black Zillions, and it sounds like you have high praise for him. Can you maybe talk about that and the ground aspect of your training?
Absolutely. Neil is the key that kind of hones all of my raw talent and athleticism. I have a sick ground game, and no one really knows about it. I mean, people in Florida, where I fought my amateur career, there's a couple amateur fighters that know how sick my ground game is. But, I'm excited. People have no idea the animal that Neil has turned me into. I'm efficient on the ground. I'm more than efficient. I have submissions. But more importantly, my ground and pound is absolutely brutal. And, that makes my stand-up, I can open up more in my stand-up because I have no worries on the ground. And it's all because of Neil, his Cradle series, his Shelton series. Like, I'm just so comfortable on the ground, and I'm so comfortable with transitions from wrestling to submissions and striking to wrestling to submissions. I can't give Neil Melanson enough praise. I just can't.
That's
awesome. Mastermind.
That's awesome to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Tywan. But
cool.
Absolutely, he deserves all the praise.
Your personality matches the excitement you bring inside the cage. I can't wait for your next fight. And hey, it was a debut. We get it. There's no sense in saying what's next for you. Title talk. I almost don't even want to hear it. I just want to hear. I just want to hear that you're getting better. You're going to keep working hard, and whenever the next matchup happens, it happens. But that was seriously one hell of a debut, and I'm a fan. I can't wait. I can't wait for the next fight.
Thank you, man. Like you said, there's no need to talk about a title fight, but hey, I am ready to get back in there, and I'm ready to have a good time, man. It was fun. I was calm, relaxed, and it's exactly where I want it to be. That,
by the way,
that
how old are you, Tywan?
Everything.
How old
I'm
are you,
24. Buddy? I'll be 25 in a couple weeks. I'll be 25 in a couple weeks.
There you go. Still young in the sport, man. Keep getting better. Keep doing your thing. Thanks for joining us here on the show, my man. We really enjoyed it. Go have some fun and answer some of them DMs.
All right. I will for sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, Eric Claxton. Take care. We'll see you. All right, folks. That's Taiwan Claxton. Big shout out to Danny and CJ for always taking care of us from the Bellator crew. And that highlight reel KO is not hard to find, so check it out. Check out the Bellator website. I'm sure it's on there. But that was really cool. Our buddy Matt Erickson, who covered the event, he was at the event and he told us, he was like, "Whoa!" He goes, "That was you got to see this, guys." So he's the one that alerted it. So a big tip of the hat to him. All right, let's go back-to-back fighters here. From Bellator 186 the night before to UFC 217. Things are a little bit different here because obviously we're talking to Taiwan Claxton about his win. We're going to have to talk about Walt Harris about what was deemed a loss at UFC 217 because of a disqualification is the way it was put down officially, an illegal head kick. And I know that aside from that result, Walt is very displeased at that and also being called a cheater. And I thought it made sense to bring him on so we could talk a little bit about this because I'll give you my 2 cents. I in no way feel like from covering Walt all these years and seeing him fight that's what he needs to do to win a fight, especially one that he was dominating. And so what I guess it breaks down to is by the letter of the law with the referee saying break and trying to stop Walt, did he or did he not handle that correctly? But let's talk to Walt Harris first. Walt, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing all right.
All right. I know it was a tough weekend for you. UFC 217, this was a fight that you were definitely in control of, and there was an unfortunate ending towards the end of round 2. Have you had a chance to see the fight, collect your thoughts, and address it how you want to address it?
I've been seeing a couple different videos. I haven't been able to go back and watch the fight in its entirety, but I've seen a few videos.
Now, I think I've offered my opinion. I'll let the guys chime in, when they start presenting questions to you. I don't feel like you're a dirty fighter, nor did you need to do that, nor that was a dirty tactic or anything like that. I guess the only thing I want to know from you is, do you, see why the ref may have even called it that, and do you give him any percent in that he may have been right in his judgment because he yelled time twice, he put his hands on you. Granted, I know all this is happening 100 miles an hour. I know you're in there and you're focused. It's a laser focus. You guys are fighting. It's a battle. So I get all that. But I just, again, wanted to see if what kind of thoughts you had towards the actual decision that was made.
I didn't agree with it. I felt like he was a bit late. He said he yelled, but it's a fight. Like I can't hear you yelling. I barely can hear my own corner. I'm in the middle of a fight trying to finish a fight. So, from what I saw in the replays, I saw he was getting there as the kick landed. So, I definitely don't agree with it.
What have you heard from the UFC themselves? Did they say anything to you? Any of the, whether it's the president Dana White or the matchmakers or any of the suits that are working the event, have they offered you anything?
Yes, I spoke with Dana right afterwards, and he told me to contest it. He told me to appeal it. He said he felt like, there's a replay, and, I had a chance to win it if I appeal, so that's what I'm going to do. I feel like at worst it should have been a no contest. If you remember, Curtis Blades and Alexei Oleinik had the same type of situation, and they gave Curtis the win. So, I don't understand how mine just went straight to a disqualification when there was conclusive evidence on the replay that the knee didn't land low, and I was in the heat of the fight. It wasn't like the ref had put his hands on me, stopped my momentum, and then I took off and went and hit him. I was in the middle of a combination. So to just go straight to disqualification is like, I don't understand that.
While the appeal process is taking place, what do you want to do? Do you want to relax after these fight camps? You've had a couple of them in succession, or do you want to get right back at it? And would you want to do it with Mark Godbeer or move on from that?
I mean, I'll move on from Godbeer, man. He quit. Bottom line, I feel like he could have continued. There's been numerous fights where I was hit low, and if you watch, I've gotten pictures. The kick hit him in the neck. It didn't hit him in the face and the chin. It didn't even connect clean, and he reacted afterwards, and then he went to his corner and took a knee, like he couldn't continue. So, I feel like he cheated the fans, he cheated me, and, I don't want to fight him again. What's the point? Why would I, honestly, if it was, he said I cheated, why would I do that? I was winning the fight handily. So what would be the need to do something dirty,
And would you want to fight right away, or do you need to take some time to chill a little bit just to?
No, I mean, I'm going to take a week off, and I'm going to be right back in the gym, and whatever the UFC want, they want, then I'll, see what we can do.
Walt Harris, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio, coming off a disappointing loss in the terms of the way it went down, obviously, versus Mark Godbeer in a fight that he was doing very well at UFC 217. Let me send it over to the Mandalay Bay. Goes and Dan, what do you have for Walt Harris?
Walt, did you have an opportunity to talk to Mark at all after the fight or his camp? And if so, what did you guys discuss?
I mean, the only conversation, we got into an argument in the doctor's base. If you couldn't continue, I don't understand how you're yelling and screaming at me in the back and going back and forth with me if you're so injured, if you couldn't continue to fight. So it's just one of those things, man, like, we just got after it, and they had to separate us a little bit because there was a little bit of tension there.
Wait a minute. What was he saying to you?
I mean, he was like, he said I cheated. He said he'd fight me again. I'm like, bro, you had a chance to fight me. Take your 5 minutes and then get yourself together and come back and fight. He took the easy way out. Point blank, period. I don't care what anybody says. He took the easy way out. He knows it. His camp knows it. Everybody in that arena knew it. So don't, sit here and argue. He's yelling and screaming back and forth with me. I basically called him a bitch, because that's how I felt. That's what I felt in the moment. He bitched out. He took the easy way out. He knew he was losing the fight, and it was just a matter of time before I put him away. So he found a way out, and I don't respect that, and I let him know that.
I know the situation didn't end the way you wanted it to, but you looked phenomenal up until that moment. Can you still build off of that momentum, and are there positives you can take from the actual performance?
Oh, for sure. I'm getting better with each fight. I'm gaining more confidence in my all-around skill set, and everything's starting to come together for me. So, of course, I feel like, I know what I need to go back and tighten up. I'm always critical of myself, even, in quick finishes. I know and see different things that I can work on. So I'm always trying to get better, and I think that's what's keeping me moving up, as far as my skill set goes.
Now, Walt, I know wording or even a recap of a situation really kind of doesn't matter to a certain point, when it comes to, a fighter like yourself having something on his record, not having a win bonus, and all these other things that people don't realize that come along with these decisions. But I use the word to describe it as unfortunate because, A, obviously I do not think you were a dirty fighter whatsoever, and B, I don't think people understand, and you can weigh in on this here, Walt, I don't think people understand that when you are mid-combination, when you have something ingrained in your muscle memory throwing so many times, that it is hard to stop, much less when you're in the heat of the battle, much less when you're not a small guy, Walt. I don't think they have anti-lock brakes built in for guys that are 265 pounds to just stop on a dime. So I don't think anybody, came at you or accused you, and maybe wording doesn't mean much now, but did you have an issue with the way it was recapped, worded, or anything like that as far as the point of view and the perspective from your side of things?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways I do. Like I've said before, like I pride myself on being a true martial artist and not being considered dirty. And I've been seeing people saying, oh, the ref was screaming at you, you dirty, you went in after the fact, and I'm like, that's crazy to me. Like, if you watch the video, it's evident that the kick is already gone by the time the ref even gets close to me. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. It's already, like you said, it's ingrained in me to go and finish that combination. And it's just my mindset to finish fight. So when I watched the tape, the knee landed. I thought he was hurt from the knee, so I'm going to finish. And, for anybody to say that, oh, you heard him, like, no, it's I'm zoned in. It's tunnel vision. The only way I would have known to stop had I had any inclination to stop would have been had I saw him go down, stop, looked at the ref. I didn't look at the ref. I need him, and I went to finish the fight. So I didn't even know the ref was behind me, touching me, or any of that. And he, said I yelled. Okay, yelling in a combat fight in a Madison Square Garden. It's like, come on, man. That's his excuse for why he called it what he called. Oh, I yelled. Bro, the reason people are like, oh, well, he's yelling at you, it's because he's mic'd up. He's mic'd up, and there's microphones all around the cage. So, of course, you guys can hear it. I can't hear that.
One more thing to
I
add.
don't appreciate.
Sorry, go ahead, Walt. I was just going to say one more thing to add was that you were a southpaw fighter as well, facing an open stance fighter, and we've had referees on the program here before, and speaking about the intricacies of reffing, and I've heard John McCarthy and others say it's really important to make sure as a ref you are standing on the open side of the action so you can see any fouls. And also, I think that goes both ways. I'm sure that helps for the fighters to see the ref because, like you said, not only are you seeing, and I take your word that you didn't see the ref, but if you look at the replay, again, the timing's unfortunate here, but you see the ref actually coming from your blind side. Like if we're making a turn in a car, guys, we have our blind sides, we have to shoulder check. Walt Harris would have probably had to have shoulder checked midway through that combination to see the ref because the ref was not on the open stance of the action. Not trying to criticize or throw Blake Grice under the bus here by any means with that statement, just adding to the perspective of the situation.
No, and that's my point. Like, had he been on my open side to where I was going to attack Mark, then I would have heard and saw him probably because it would have been in my line of vision. I didn't even see him. So, it just, like you said, it's unfortunate, and that's why I think I will win the appeal. When you look back at the replay and you put all the extenuating factors in place, they'll see, that it wasn't a malicious thing and it should have been made at worst a no contest.
Walt, what hurts more, the loss itself or the cheating accusations?
The loss, man. People are going to say what they're going to say. I worked so hard to put myself in the position that I'm in now. A loss I can't deal with a loss like that, especially when I was winning the fight as dominantly as I was. That's what bothers me. I put 14 weeks in almost on that count, and to have it taken away on a humbug, that's what hurts.
Well, Walt, obviously, with time, we're going to know a few things. For one, what the appeal process is going to be like, when the UFC is going to want you to fight again. So we'll sort all that out soon. But I will say, I don't know. I don't know if you have any reconsideration to it at all. But I guess, if anything, there's maybe a storyline already built into this. This could be hyped up pretty big if you were to pursue it, the rematch. But I respect your opinion. If you're just done with the guy and you want to move on, that's fine too. Either way, can't wait to cover you again because, like Goz said earlier, you look great in this fight, and it was definitely looked like it was on its way to being your night. We want to see more of that soon.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate it. Like I said, I mean, honestly, like right now, it's still so fresh. I don't know. Like I said, once I talked to Mick again, I talked to him right after the fight. He was happy with my performance. He told me to contest it too. So, once I get a conversation in with him, then I'll know my next move. But as of right now, I'm going back to the gym in about a couple of days, and we'll keep going.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us here on the show, and hopefully things work out for you with that appeal.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care.
Easy, Walt.
All right, folks. We're going to take a break here. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Back-to-back, Taiwan Claxton, now known as Eric Claxton, a winner at Bellator. And, of course, Walt Harris. He was performing great, man, at UFC 217, but definitely a disappointing ending to that fight, the way it went down. And he says he plans to appeal. So follow him on Twitter at TheBigTicket205. We'll be right back after this break.
They can drink Mentos-flavored Diet Coke without their stomachs giving a single fuck. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Your favorite holiday music channels are back on SiriusXM. Check out contemporary holiday favorites on Holly, Channel 70, and holiday traditions on Channel 4. Also, big shout out to Ryan Gibson, supporter of the show, friend of the show. I just want to let you know, Ryan, that Goes and I are thinking about you. He's going through a lot right now, but I saw his post on Facebook earlier, and he's definitely having a rough go, so we're thinking about you, buddy. Also, I negated, sorry, struggling there. I gave out Walt Harris's Twitter handle and Taiwan Speedy Claxton. If you want to follow him, because he seemed like a really entertaining cat. Seems like he'll be around for a while, man. TClax149 is his Twitter handle. So give him a follow. Let him know you heard him on the @MMA Junkie Radio Show. Lastly, Goes, you better come home fast because
I'm not coming
I've been
home.
looking in the fridge. Oh, well, you're making a big mistake.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Because we got that box from Freshly, and you put yours on the left and mine on the right, and I happened to glance over at yours, and I think there's a steak peppercorn there. I had mine on Saturday, and it was so... I don't even know if I can use the word, but it was so good, dude. I may have to go... It wouldn't necessarily be back-to-back, because mine was on Saturday, but, oh, man, I may just have to pull the switcheroo on you. Freshly has come strong. I already pounded out the pasta bolognese, and now that one's coming up next. So you either got to race home or just give up the fact that I got you.
I have an insurance policy. I already told Juliet, I go, look, here's what happened. I ordered the peppercorn steak, but I just came off of the whole Dodger thing and eating all that steak. I was going to eat that one first because it looks so good, especially in the little commercial. And she goes, you know what? George had that, and he really liked it. And I go, you know what? I know how George plays, and he may just pull it out and say it was an accident, which I would have to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? I would just go, all right, and people screw up. But deep down inside, I'd go, George. I had the chicken risotto. It was awesome. But now I'm a little scared. I'm going to have to go home and have the peppercorn steak. But I also have a chicken parm wait. I looked at yours, George. I was looking at your 4 because I put them on the right and then my 4. I think my 4 takes your 4. I'm not sure, though. You had peppercorn, and you had the bolognese.
Maybe we'll battle it off.
How did you not do chicken parm? Isn't that like one of your favorites?
Well, yeah, but I can only get to them one by one. But so far, they've been a hit. And by now, Junkie Nation, you've heard about us with Freshly. So pay attention so you can know how to get some of your hands on some of this great food. All right, folks, listen. Goes, Danny, Dan, we got to make an executive decision here. We got a couple callers on hold. You have a couple stun gun stories, possibly. 5 minutes OT, you guys good?
Sure.
Or we're going to put a rush job here on these cats like Brian from Boston and Oreo. All right, we're good. So let's go to Oreo in Alberta, Canada. What's up, Oreo?
Yo, George, you left me hanging. I had a question for Taiwan.
Oh,
I fucked up, man. I'm so sorry. That's right. Danny told me that.
Yeah,
man.
man.
I really wanted to make it happen, man. I like you. You've been a caller for such a long time, and I had a feeling it'd be a good question. So sorry about that. Forgive me.
Hey, make us tell us what it was. What was the question?
Yeah, so before he got signed to Bellator, he actually called out Aaron Pico. He was saying on his Twitter, he was begging Bellator to sign him so he could fight Aaron Pico because he was like 0-1, and he wanted to fight him. So I wanted to see if he still wanted to get Pico or if he's past that.
That's a great question. It was a call-in. It's not like I even have his number to text him that. I honestly would for you, but we'll get to it soon, I promise.
It's all good, man. Hey, so how much money did you guys lose over the weekend? Wow, huh?
Not too much, but it's only because I didn't bet. But imagine
2 legs. My only 2 blades and Alex parlay leg.
And even in our own little breakdown here, I went 3-2.
Yep.
And what got me was towards the end, I guess. So remember how I'm more of a, in traditional sports I do 3-teamers or 5-teamers, but with MMA, because of the odds floating around, you can do 4. Well, I had to do a 4 because there was only 2 fights left, and so all you could do is the fight itself and the total. But I scored big on one of those, and the only reason I did it, I was sitting there watching the fights, and I remember talking about Brunson's bet, and I go, you know what, I'm going to put 25 as a little tribute to Brunson on Rose. Not because I really felt like she was going to win. I just thought, wouldn't that be cool if it hit? Just because you never know what might happen in MMA. But I really thought Joanna would have smashed her, and the gun to the head, obviously I would have lost my life. But I hit that, and that gave me like $111 to just mess around with. So I did a parlay on GSP under, Dillashaw under, and that hit, and It did well for me, Oreo. So I wouldn't say that, even though they were 2 of my picks, I wouldn't say as far as like that over-under stuff, I got a good beat on it, or I'm the expert, or listen to me in the future. But anyway, thanks for the call. Sorry about Speedy Claxton. We'll make it up to you, I promise. Folks, we're going to do a soft exit. We'll be back on Facebook.com/official MMA Junkie. Check it out. Sirius XM audience, we'll see you tomorrow.
Time turning night into daytime. If you see it once, you'll never be the same again. I'm gonna keep on the run. I'm gonna have me some fun. It cost me my very last dime. If I wind up broke, well, I'll always remember that I had a
clear for overtime.
All right, let's talk to Brian from Boston. He's been on hold. What's up, Brian? How you doing?
Hey, boys. So I've been watching MMA, I think, for over 20 years, reading what I can about MMA, discussing MMA. And this weekend pretty much told me I don't know shit. Thank God that I don't put money on these fights. I truly thought that T.J. Dillashaw was a little bit scared of Garbrandt. I thought Garbrandt's power would overwhelm him. Never did I think Rose Namajunas. She threw that right hand like a heavyweight, man. She threw that thing beautifully. And then I thought to myself, okay, so the night's over. I'm looking back. The fights were great. I was just so disappointed in myself. I'm like, God, I'm stupid. I can't figure this stuff out at all.
Well, Ghost said the same thing. He's like, how do we even face our listeners on Monday? We couldn't have been more off. And again, not to pat myself on the back, I guess I had 2 of them right. But look, nobody picked Joanna. I don't think anybody other than Derek Brunson and Pat Barry and Trevor Whitman. Come on, that one's a tough one to pick. So that doesn't make you a goof or an idiot or nothing like that. Bisping GSP, you just never know. I mean, if look at the way the tide was turning. Bisping was starting to turn the tide. Even when he was on the ground, GSP didn't really do what he normally does, and Bisping cut him up, and Bisping was starting to look like the fresher fighter of the two. But credit to GSP, landed the punch he needed to land, and that was that. And as far as TJ and Cody, if you broke down the fight and had Cody winning, well, Cody was, guess what? He was on his way to it, man. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't say TJ was scared because he had experience with Cody. He knew Cody could probably end the fight. He had the bigger of the two one-punch type of power. But I think TJ had confidence in his preparation, his strategy, and to be able to shake off getting knocked down the way he did in round 1, it says a lot about him. But when I'm telling you, when Cody was blitzing on him, wow, the hand speed, the accuracy, the power, it's something to behold. I'm not so sure Cody may not be favored, at least a slight favorite in the second fight. But either way, he's pretty fearless, man. He went in there and did what he had to do, and caught him, and he won. And then they went face to face. I don't know if you guys have caught that picture, but that's pretty. That's been making the rounds as well. So this fight can be massive when they come around to it again. I don't blame TJ for going and chasing history against DJ, but once they circle back and they do this one,
he should drop down to 170 and fight a couple of the
us to create new George St. Pierre's if we can't even digest an event. So that's my stun gun.
I got you there.
How about Danny Olkers? Danny Olkers.
I only had one before. Now I have a second one that.
Ooh.
So, the
17 because the fighters get home, they start posting on social media, they start doing interviews. The UFC from there